What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back with some more Elder Scrolls Legends, and today we're going to be talking about some more Isle of Madness cards that have been revealed. I think we've got another 6 to go over today, I believe. You know how we're going to do it. I'm going to show you the card, tell you my thoughts, give it a star rating from 1 to 5 based on how strong I think the card is, how many decks it fits into, and how much it'll shake up the meta or advance the meta. So, let's get on into it. First card is right here. It was revealed by Ristion on his YouTube channel. I believe this is Polish. I'm not really sure. I don't want to guess the language. But we have here, the translation is a 4 Magicka action. Gain 2 health for each friendly creature. So that means you can heal up to 16 health if you have both your lanes filled. Personally, I don't think this card is very strong. I could see some combo potential in the Mirror Monk. I think this would be a playable card if it counted both yours and your opponent's creatures, and even then I don't know how powerful it quite is. I'd rather just play like a healing potion for 2 and heal for 5 guaranteed, get it from Prophecy occasionally, rather than this. Yeah, I think its only potential is going to be in a combo-y like setting with Mirror Monk. I'd give this card like, normally I'd give it like 1 star, but I'm going to give it 1.5 stars because of its potential for combos at some point. I think this is designed to potentially, besides the combo, use to be a anti-aggro type of card or a recovery type of card after you've stabilized against aggro. I just don't really think it's good enough. If Mirror Monk ever gets extra strong, this card could go up to a 2. But right now I can't give it any more than 1.5 stars. Next card we've got here, spoiled by Games Inquisition, is Transmogrify. 7 cost action. Sacrifice a creature to summon the top creature from your deck. So there are actually some potential uses that I could see for this card. The only problem is I don't know if they're quite consistent enough. Like, at first glance, this card is absolute trash. You have to kill a creature, pay 7 Magicka, and then at that point, you may or may not get solid value from something. For example, like, if you're playing a normal deck, you could pull a Ward Crafter or something like this, and at that point, you paid 7 Magicka and killed the creature to summon a Ward Crafter. But, I don't think this card is quite that bad. What I'm picturing is a mostly creatureless deck. So you guys have seen that while creatureless decks don't really have a lot of ways to win, for the most part, they can do an okay job at controlling the board, clearing opponents' threats out, and stuff like that. So I'm picturing a mostly creatureless deck that runs Transmogrify and maybe has a couple really high power late game cards to run or to pull with Transmogrify. So for example, let's say if the only creature you run in your deck is Dagoth, you could Dagoth and then potentially double Dark Rebirth for 24 damage from hand. Is that consistent? No, but you know, it's an option. In an assassin list, you can run double Swift Strike. And if you had reduced the cost of those Swift Strikes down to 0, you could potentially Swift Strike multiple times with Transmogrify. I don't think it's going to be that quite consistent, that it could be a real deck. But I think that this card is playable in that sort of mostly creatureless, only play super high impactful, maybe even charge creatures type of thing. And for that reason, I know I'm probably going to be in the minority on this. I'm going to give this card like a 2.5 to 3 stars. Because I think this could birth a new kind of deck. We'll see if it's quite powerful enough. I think 7 is a little steep for the cost. If it costs like 5, I would be all over trying to build a deck around this card. I'm still going to try anyway because, you know, that's what I do. But I don't think this card is quite as horrendous as people are saying it is. I think this card is actually usable. So I'm going to give it like a 2.5, maybe 3 star. But 2.5 I feel confident in. Next card was revealed by Santos Vela. It is Bedeviling Scamp. 3 cost, 3/3. All cards cost a minimum of 3. So there's a couple things I'm thinking about with this card. It hurts a lot of regular aggro decks that are playing a lot of 1 and 2 cost creatures. But by the time this card comes down, it's probably easily destroyed. but it can be a nice little counter to an opponent that's just kind of dumping constant creatures on the board. But it also counters... actually, it's kind of what I'm thinking about. So a lot of people see this card and they say it's a pretty solid answer to Conscription, since you'll pull nothing, since all of your 2-cost creatures will now cost 3. But it depends on whether this effect hits your deck or not. And you may say, oh, obviously it hits your deck, but... what's it called? Lich's Ascension says all of your cards cost 0, and yet it doesn't apply to cards that are in your deck yet. So I feel like this card probably does hit cards in your deck, and maybe just it's inconsistent between the 2 cards. But if this doesn't hit cards in your deck, it's a lot worse than it is at the moment. This can turn Firebolts and Sorcerer's Negations and any 0-cost cards that a market deck may want to play into 3-cost cards. I think this card's going to be more annoying than it is powerful. I think this card's probably like a, I don't know, maybe a 2-star card, if that. I don't think boosting the cost of cards up to 3 is as horrible as it sounds. I think something like a Withered Hand Cultist for 3 is quite often a lot more impactful than this card would be. I don't think it's a bad card. I just don't think it's quite as strong as everybody's making it out to be. And even aggro decks, a lot of the aggro decks in this game, like I'm thinking about, I guess people call it Mid-Sorcerer and Aggro Warrior. The best creatures in those decks cost 3, 4, and 5. So this card does nothing to kind of trample their game plans. So I've seen a lot of people talk about how crazy this card is. I don't think it's that powerful. I'd give this card 2 stars. Next up, this was spoiled by Merchant on Twitter. It's another split card. It's Manic Jack, and it comes with Manic Mutation. Take a look at each individual card. Manic Jack is a 3-cost 3/3. When Manic Jack gains a keyword, he gains +1/+1. So 3/3 for 3 is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. And his ability is decent. Things like Royal Sage, Wisdom of the Ancients, I think, is the action that gives a random keyword. What else do we have? Skooma Racketeer, I think, is the 3-cost 2/2 that gives lethal. You got a bunch of keyword items like Dagoth Dagger. There's ways to give this guy keywords. So Dagoth Dagger would actually give this guy +3/+2, which I think is really solid. A improvised weapon is +2/+2 in breakthrough. I think this guy is a decent card if your deck can play into it, and I've played keyword decks before, so this guy would slide right into that deck. Battle Reeve of Dusk works well with this guy. And the card that he comes with is Manic Mutation. Give a friendly creature a random keyword. So you could play this guy with his action as a 4-cost 4/4. You could put the keyword on somebody else. It's just, this card is fine. Like, I don't think it's crazy powerful. I think there's a lot of different synergistic ways to buff this card. He's also not a unique, so playing 3 of these in your deck and having it be a keyword-focused deck could be solid, and I'm actually pretty excited to play with this card. And the random keyword can come into play more often than you think. Most keywords in this game are pretty good, besides, you know, your occasional regenerate, but getting rally on a creature, getting ward on a creature, lethal on a creature, all of those things are very good, so this card is fine. I think this is a incredibly well-designed, I would say, split card. Both cards are fine to potentially good on their own. Neither one is broken, but they both work well together as well as separately. So I like this a lot, and I'm actually excited to mess with this card a lot. I'd give this card 3 stars as a split. They both are, they're 3 stars as a group. I'd probably give like this guy 2 stars and this guy 2 stars individually, if that. Maybe this guy a little bit lower than 2 stars. But I think the fact that you get them together is enough to give this a 3-star rating as a pair. Next up, I think one of the more underrated, I haven't really seen, to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of reaction to this card yet, so I don't know how people are reacting to it. But I would expect this to be a more underrated card. Here's Pointy Wall of Spikes, 2-cost 0/3 Prophecy Guard. When Pointy Wall of Spikes takes damage from a creature, it deals that much damage to that creature. So it's Prophecy, it's Guard, it's cheap, it is anti-aggro hell. I think this card is absolutely fantastic, and at first glance you're like, oh, 2-cost 0/3, that's basically like Makeshift Defenses or the Illusory Defenses, that does nothing. but the effect is so powerful. You could swing into this with Odiving, not the effect, with Odiving itself, and this thing kills Odiving on its own. It's basically like lethal. Yeah, it's basically like lethal for the most part. Besides for creatures that have more health than attack. That's not as common with things, but I think this is a really strong 2-cost card, and the fact that it's a prophecy is really, really crazy. You could put this card in front of a lot of things, and it will do well. And the other crazy thing is, this card, the way the text is worded, if you played this in front of a card that used, let's say, for example, Unstoppable Rage, this effect would kick in based on how it's worded, I believe. So, for example, if I had like an 8/8 Giant in front of this card and I use Unstoppable Rage, the Giant is dealing its damage to this card. So this card would deal damage back if my understanding of the wording of this card is correct. So it's actually the only card in the game, I believe, that can deal damage back on indirect damage sources. I think this is actually a really, really strong card. It's going to be one of the tools that, like, control decks need to come back to existing as control decks. This is a great stall card. If you play this against an aggro opponent, quite often you can 2-for-1 with this, since most aggro opponents' cards have attack higher than their health, and on turn 1 or 2, they don't all have 3 attack or more quite yet. Buffing this is amazing. Like a Maple Shield on this already makes it a huge thorn in the side. And the fact that it's a prophecy makes it even better. I'm actually going to give this card 4 stars. I could see it being a little higher, but I'm going to stick with the 4 stars for now, just because the health is going to make it so it's not quite as powerful as it could be. But this is an amazing speed bump. It is, like I mentioned, almost the equivalent of lethal in a color that does not have lethal. So something like a Control Mage. This could act as almost like a Fighters Guild recruit for that deck. I think this is a 4-star card. Very, very powerful. And much more than meets the eye here. And the last card we're going to talk about for today was revealed on the Legends stream. Actually, it's pretty delicious. It's another split card. Ballywog Tide Crawlers, 4-cost 2/6 with guard, and Smoked Ballywog Leg, 0-cost action, heal a creature. So this is the stat line and the effect of Lurking Mummy, I think. Lurking Mummy, the 5-cost 2/6, but no prophecy on this one. It's kind of in a similar slot to Hive Defender, although the 1 attack is pretty huge. But this card is probably good enough on its own as a slow, like, beefy card. It's obviously great in the high health deck with that support, High Hrothgar. If you're a slower deck and you're not running yellow to have access to a Hive Defender, you're probably happy running this card as a almost good enough thing. Like I mentioned, the 3 attack makes Hive Defender trade with a lot of things, but still 2 attack and 6 health is going to kill a lot of aggro cards while probably soaking up at least 2 to 3 swings on his own. And then the Smoked Ballywog Leg, not only does it have synergy with this guy, being he has high health, you can kind of get him back to healed. Just having a 0-cost heal a creature action that you don't have to run as a solitary card, if that makes sense, is incredibly powerful. So Healing Hands is a really good card. But I don't think its isolated effect is good enough to run in your deck. And what I mean by that is, if over the course of a game you were presented with the option to be given a Healing Hands, I think a lot of the times you would take it. But you don't want to run it in your deck because you can't guarantee that you're going to be in that position all the time. So what can you do? In this situation, you don't get the +1/+1, but you run these guys as a pair, and you play them because Ballywog Tide Crawlers is probably good enough as a 2/6 guard, and then you also get the bonus effect of receiving this heal a creature that you can hang on to for that right moment. And I think the fact that these come paired together, this guy's good enough to run on his own, although he's not obviously the best guard you can get at that cost. The fact that he comes with this makes him much more appealing, because you'll have this for when it's ready. I think this card is solid. I think this card is solid. Together, it's a solid pair. I'm actually going to give this split card 3.5 stars. We've been looking for better guards to kind of slow down the tide of battle, and getting a, while not quite as good as Healing Hands, but you still get that healing effect, I think is really, really good. So 3.5 stars for this card. But yeah, that is going to be it for now, guys. I know we've got another handful of cards to talk about. We'll probably wait another day or two so that the cards can pile in a little bit more and we get another batch of 6 or 7 cards. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your guys' ratings would be down below in the comments section. I've been loving reading your guys' feedback. I want to start responding to some more of your messages about the cards. I've just been a little swamped lately. But yeah, thank you guys all very, very much for watching. I'm DragonTamerBlayde, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.